Can be hard when you grow up. People fill you with doubt. You start thinking about what you're gonna do now. And it's do or die, gotta make it count. So lose your worries, let your problems go on until my whole body burns out. I ain't never gonna slow down. I ain't never gonna slow down.
Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about business coaching, but especially for women. We touch base for the men, we touch base for the fellas, we touch base for all high achieving entrepreneurs. But my guest today, she specializes in helping businesswomen understand more about how they can achieve their fullest potential in their business and career. Of course, you can take all this advice and it doesn't have to be gender focused. Anyone can learn from this information. And then you can also learn from the aspect of what is necessarily the path that someone can walk down, and you can learn that can be their possible outcome themselves. And what I mean by that is, for example, I talked about like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, right? So we can see that I understand, Steve Jobs, he passed away and Bill Gates is still alive. We can see what they have created. And we can say, you know what? I like what Steve did. I like what Bill did. I don't like how Bill acts. I don't like how Steve acts to his employees and things like that, right? So we can be nitpicky, right? And we could say we don't want that. So then what we do is we emulate to be that boss that might have similar values like Bill and like Steve, but yet we change some of the things that we don't necessarily desire. You don't have to be exactly like someone, but you can look at what they did, what works for them, and then figure out what works for you. So today we're going to be looking at what works for you and figuring out what you need to do rather than what society is telling you to do, and helping you start a business with my guest, Lezly Kaye. Welcome, Lezly Kaye, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. And you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. As I said, we are going to be having you on as a business mentor today. So I'm so interested to speak with you in your own personal touch to how you help people elevate their own business game. In your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help?
I'm Lezly Kaye. I sort of sit in the intersection of where business mentorship meets life coaching. And really, no matter who I'm speaking to and what I'm helping them through, there's always a through line to how we relate with ourselves. And that is how we relate with the rest of the world, including how we show up in business. So I love to guide people, women especially, back into grace in their lives and their businesses, and allow them to cultivate more pleasure, play, and prosperity through the platform of reflection that being in business with yourself offers you as an entrepreneur.
What would you say is some of the most common hurdles you see between entrepreneurs separating their personal life from their business life?
We live in a society that programs us to wear masks. It essentially tells us that it's not safe to be our full selves. And especially what was true for me, I had a big corporate business before stepping into the coaching world where I truly felt like I was living out two lives or two versions of myself. And it kind of created a disparity in my own psyche where I labeled one part of my personality as good, the high achieving, multi-million dollar making businesswoman, versus the soft, sensual, spiritual side of me. And so the more I traveled the journey, the more, I guess, this disparity caused me to, in big and small ways, like sabotage the life I had created, because I got to the pinnacle of what everyone told me I should be happy with. $1 million businesses, husband that loved me more than he loved himself, like Range Rovers, designer bags, and I was 110 kilos, and I was severely unhappy with myself and my life because I continued to live for everyone else's image of who I thought was acceptable in the world versus the truth of who I really am, and that sort of multi-dimensional capability to be expressed in all of me and not just the parts that mainstream society deems as acceptable.
That is going to be challenging for many people because society is so prevalent in many of the choices we make, from the cars we drive to the homes we live in. Many people don't even realize that they're being influenced by a commercial, by their friends, their peers, whatever it be, and that they're going down a road that's not true to themselves. at some point, we do have to reflect, as you did in your life, where you look at finally at what you have attained, your goals, the things you thought would make you happy. You looked at them finally. You look in and you said, well, this is not what's truly making me happy. Let me figure out what that was or what this is for me. What was the first step for you to look at your life and to say, okay, what do I want? What does Lezly want versus what does the world want for me?
I guess the pinnacle was achieving everything and then feeling this insatiability for more, which made no sense because I had everything that I should have wanted. And it sort of forced me to stop and to look and to really, I guess, take stock of everything I had in my life and how I truly felt about it. I sort of tell this story where, I had quite the interesting childhood and I sort of packed up my trauma and ran as fast as I could away from the life that I didn't want, that I never actually stopped to ask myself, what is the life that I do want? And I think a lot of people similarly sort of go towards or move away from what they know they don't want. I don't want poverty. I don't want pain. I don't want abuse. And then we sort of just run in the direction of where we think we're going to find freedom, which often is in success. And for me, the truth was when I got there, there was no fulfillment. There is actually, I sit in this intersection of science and spirituality, and there is actually a behavioral process that we go through where entrepreneurship tends to lead us into spirituality, because once you start to make money and you start to actualize everything you desire, we start to ask ourselves questions of fulfillment, and is this all there is? And, is the next promotion or the next $1 million salary going to actually keep sustaining this hunger? Then we tend to slide off that entrepreneurship into spirituality. And for some of us, and what it was true for me, is the pendulum swing where we denounce money and denounce success and sort of look at the world through service and how we can give back and how we can create change. And then the completion of that cycle, where I feel we come into more wholeness, is sort of stepping back into entrepreneurship, or when you're in entrepreneurship, steering that ship towards purpose and passion and contribution, rather than fulfilling a need to prove to yourself that you're worthy of success or love or recognition, whatever it might be you're seeking to make up for from your childhood generally.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it, because in a way, we do run away from the things we don't like. And if you ask someone, what do they want? It's almost a question is like, I never thought about that. Where if you start to ask yourself, well, what do you want? Then you can be more concise on what you're giving yourself the plans for. Because if you just kind of haphazardly go through life, you're going to always find yourself at a dead end and you're going to say, this is not it. But now we're going to get into the aspect of business, because there are so many businesses that someone can begin. Someone can start a business doing concrete work. Someone can do, a sewing company. Someone can make a big Bitcoin company. I mean, there's endless businesses that someone can create. How would someone know what businesses are for them and not for what they were influenced to? Similar to how we already started off our conversation, it's almost like we want to be business people, but is the business we're starting true to us?
There's a couple of pieces I want to touch on here. Don't be afraid to fail and don't be afraid to try. So there's a through line to every successful person I surround myself with, I coach, I'm in relationship with, is that it's not that there's no fear of failure. It's that quintessential, like, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because we can get so caught up, and a lot of people I speak to in the beginning stages of business are like, well, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my purpose is, so I'm just not going to start. I feel there's an essence of allowing yourself or giving yourself the grace to fail and giving yourself the grace to try and to stumble. Because if we continue to sit on the sidelines and don't start a concreting business because concreting's not giving back to the world, we're kind of missing the point. And I also want to approach this, I speak to people that are in service-based businesses that's not, coaching or healing or has a spiritual vein, and they think they're not contributing in a big enough way. And what I want to remind people is that we're all feeding into ecosystems. And if we can be conscious in the ecosystem that we're creating, that is creating change in the world. And what I mean by that is, if, let's say, you start a concreting business, you get to choose your own hours, and rather than working for the man, you can, schedule Friday afternoons off so you can come home and spend Friday afternoons with your wife and your child. that level of contribution to your life and to the love that you're giving back into the world through presence with your wife and your daughter is a radical act of being in service to the bigger picture. And then as that business starts to grow, let's say your paperwork starts to stack up and you don't want to do your invoicing yourself, so you hire a VA. And so now you're feeding into, maybe it's a mum that works from home because she can't get childcare and can't go to the office, and she can do your invoices whilst her baby's asleep or something like that. So rather than thinking, if I'm not solving world hunger or not contributing to world peace, my mission isn't big enough. We need to get into the micro and actually start to realize the ripple effects that we have in the ecosystems we're creating, in the presence and consciousness we bring to every aspect of business, in every vein, in every niche. It's not about what you're doing per se, it's about how you're doing it and how present you are with your contribution to the micro moments in your life, because that does add up to big ripples throughout the whole world.
Sometimes I like to phrase it in the sense of like, what is your favorite food or your favorite dessert? So you might say, my favorite dessert is ice cream. And I say, okay, what flavor ice cream? Do you like strawberry? Do you like chocolate? Is it vanilla? And they say, well, I prefer to have vanilla. Well, why not chocolate? And they say, well, I just don't prefer chocolate. So you had to have chocolate at one point to know you didn't want it. Was it a failure that you tried chocolate and you didn't want it? No, it's just now you have a preference and you figured out what you want. And in a sense, if you have a business, you start a business, you go down a career, profession, a path, and you're like, this is not for me. It's not so much that you were wrong that you tried it, it's that you learn. And many people they're just so afraid to make mistakes, whether it be the smallest of mistakes, like, oh, I don't want to waste like 1 year of my life going down this path, yet they'll waste a year on their phone,
Truly.
and they don't necessarily see what they're doing wrong. It's almost like they have their blinders on and they can only see what they want to see. And as we begin to get more focused now, right? So now they have their vision, right? They know what they're going to go for. They at least have a passion for what they're going to go for. They have some type of inkling. They're not necessarily afraid to make a mistake, because you might have a huge passion for something, go for it and realize it's not for you. There's nothing wrong with that. We are on that path now. But now we get into the aspect of, do we want to do the work? Because being a business owner is not the same as being a 9-to-5 employee worker. I mean, it is extremely different. Yes, it is satisfying to the level that we get to make our own hours. We get to be our own bosses. We don't have to work for the man. But now there's more responsibility for us. Now we have to hold ourselves accountable. And yet we live in a world today where people want to give accountability to the wind and hope it doesn't, come back into their face. How can people start to get that business mindset that is necessary to help them not only start their business, grow their business, but help their business thrive?
I love this. And it's going to come back to what I said at the beginning about no matter what I'm coaching people on, it's the same vein. Where we're not happy in life, we're often not taking self-responsibility. And so I have this framework that I follow with everyone that I work with, the self-responsibility code, because this desire to outsource our power or our decisions to someone else is just coming from an inability to look ourselves in the eye and say, actually, I'm responsible for everything good and everything bad in my life. And I'm really going to start to take responsibility for how that's showing up and the ways that that's showing up. Sitting in the sidelines, working a 9-to-5. And don't get me wrong, people also need to work 9-to-5s. I don't say to people that everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur or run their own business. And the world functions because people like to be told what to do, and that's okay. And I think I also want to touch on, not everyone has to start a business. I come from big corporate world. So for me, it's just about finding an ecosystem that works for you. So maybe it's working part-time, or maybe it's finding a boss that lets you work from home. So I also just want to touch on, we need people that like to serve other people. And there's no shame in that. I look at it as having a masculine frame to the feminine flow, that some people just need a lot more structure in order to function in their work lives. And that's okay. Some of us just need a lot more containment and structure in order to shine in our chosen profession. But for those that might be curious about entrepreneurship or feeling like it's time to sort of For me, it's like a choose your own adventure. It's like taking destiny into your hands, and rather than following someone else's direction and lead and allowing someone else to contain you and to guide you, it is like an initiation into more of who you are and who you came here to be. And they say two things are certain to know yourself on deeper is relationships and starting a business. So there is a courage that you have to step into to be like, actually, I'm willing to back myself and look at the places I need to grow and then put in the work to evolve in those places so I can show up as a leader in my chosen business or profession or whatever that might be. So self-responsibility is kind of the gateway to actualizing everything we desire, whether that is starting a business and entrepreneurship or in any vein of our life. If we really start to take deep ownership of our decisions and the way we show up and relate in the world, then we can really start to shape a life that truly cultivates everything that we desire.
I mean, for me, I would be lost if I didn't have employees, helping me do the stuff that I have to do because I mean, I'm already so overloaded. It's just like if I had to take the whole workload, it was like I would collapse most likely. It's just so much. And I think people think when they're an employee, they don't play a big role, but yet they play a significant role. And you just have to figure out like, do you want to be a part of someone's dream and help them build that and say that you helped build that? Or did you want to build your own thing and say that I built that by myself or with a team? Now, either or can give you the same feeling. It just depends on your mindset. How are you viewing it? Because if you're viewing it as, I don't care if my name's, at the front of the storefront or if it's, on the bottom directory in the corner, whatever my job title is, that might be good enough for you. And so starting a business might not necessarily be the first thing a person should just jump into saying, you know what, everyone else is starting a business. I should start a business. And I don't know if you have the same issue, but here in America, I believe it was in 2021, 2022, we had a work crisis. Like not a lot of people wanted to work anymore. And it was because of the pandemic and it was a lot of lockdowns and a lot of people lost their jobs and a lot of people didn't want to depend on a business anymore because they felt like it wasn't going to provide them security. So they decided to do everything themselves. And that's when a lot of people decided to start their own business. But what had happened was there was a work shortage where there was not enough workers to work like in the coffee shops, at the fast food places. It was causing a lot of issues. And business owners started to see that, like, oh my goodness, like this is a huge strain on the business because there's no one that wants to work. And then you have the other side of people who might want to work, but then they're not necessarily in the mindset of having a good work ethic. So you have your maybe 18, 19, 20-year olds who are just kind of going in for a paycheck versus going in for a dream. So there is some different avenues that we can go down because you can go in for a paycheck, you can go in for a dream, or you can go in because you want to build something. And all is going to lead to, I guess, a different end goal when you're older, right? Will you have any regrets? And some people, when they're 65, they look back at their life and they say, I would have done this different, or I would have done this, or I wouldn't have done that. How can a person who is trying to give themselves the best career and doesn't even have to be starting a business, this is best career in general? Typically, most people are going to have some type of career. If not career, they're going to have, maybe stay at home wife, whatever. But that's also a job, I believe, that they're going to be completely satisfied that they walk down that path for. What's your take on that?
Find out what your values are and make every decision in your life from that place. Life becomes a lot easier to navigate, to be with the highs and the lows if you're walking the path in devotion to your values. And so, the more we can understand what they are and live and lead from that place, the easier decisions become. And you can then often look back and in moments where maybe you made a wrong decision, you can stay like true to this compass of, but I was living to my values. And so it kind of insulates you from regret because you're coming from a place of deeply knowing yourself and again, allowing grace for perhaps making the wrong decisions, but using values as a compass to keep guiding you back to this path. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to sort of actualize a life of your dream is to know your values and to stick to them. And similar for employees that want good employers is find out what their values are and motivate them from that place. Like if they value family, offer them a 9-day fortnight so they can spend an extra day at home. If they value travel, can they work part of their job from a different location so they can then, spend the weekend holidaying? Can they fly somewhere and, work Friday from a cafe, spend Saturday, Sunday in a tropical location, fly back Monday? So when we start to function both as an employer or employees or even entrepreneurs from our value set, we can really start to buy into this intrinsic purpose and passion for life. And it starts to make decision making and reflecting a lot smoother because we know that we're in alignment with our truth. And as I say that, our truth can change and shift, and give grace to that too. I'm pretty solid in what my values are, but when I first created them, they did change a little, and more so because the more I lived them out, the more I was able to set my compass to the truth, rather than, I feel we start really wide and we get to become really granular the more we live out our values and live out our life.
What are some of the top values that you see common in most high achieving entrepreneurs?
Freedom is one of the most common thread that I see. When you ask people why they like making money, basically, it's not actually about the money, it's about the freedom that it can ascertain them. I have this relationship with money where it's actually not about the money, but I only want to eat organic. I only want to fly business class. I only want to experience the best life has to offer because that's how much I love myself. And for me, it's actually devotion to self in that way. Like, how can I curate an experience where my self-love speaks so loud that I only have the best of everything? And it comes from a place of wholeness rather than a place of need or lack. And so freedom tends to be a through line because they value time freedom. They value being able to get on a plane within 24 hours and going anywhere in the world. And that has a lot to do with their capacity to generate prosperity or money. But it's actually playing into this desire to not be controlled by anything in their life. And I feel a lot of entrepreneurs have this same through line, is in healthy ways, because we can't control everything and we actually really can't control anything, but we won't go down that vein, is this desire to have the ultimate control over their life or freedom in their life where they can't be dictated to by something outside of themselves, and they can come into their compass and they can come into their truth and make decisions from that place. For me, love has been a vein with the people that I work with. I'm not sure if that is true for every entrepreneur, but this consciousness of, being in service to something greater than ourselves, this being in service to the evolution of humanity as a whole, and starting to, whether their business is in that vein or whether they just wield their profits in a way that's actually contributing to society in positive ways, and whether that's through environmental moves or giving back to underprivileged, third world countries, whatever that might be. There's this vein of universal love that trends through prominent business figures that I speak to. And, I'm in a lot of plant medicine spaces, and that's probably, some through lines there. But I feel there's a shift in the collective entrepreneurial space to start to ask the questions around, there's got to be more, and what am I doing this for, and what impact and what legacy am I leaving in the world?
Yeah, the legacy plays a huge part. And I know a lot of business owners, because they're trying to create something that's going to, stand the test of time. When Bill Gates is gone, Microsoft's going to be there. Look at, Steve Jobs, Apple, right? It's going to stand. And that is the empire I think many people, they desire to build. But yet we do have to look at, is that truly what you want? Because these men, and, like if we go to women businesses, have sacrificed, whether it be family, their own personal endeavors that they wanted to, maybe do or try, but they couldn't, or they didn't necessarily feel was something that was going to be an immediate concern. So they put off until a later date. And I'm sure you're very familiar with just waiting and putting off until one day you look back, you're like, oh, where did my time go? So when we're young, we have all the time in the world, they say. And we can, go to college, we can start this business, start that business, try this and that. And then as soon as we start to get a little bit older, we start to become more laser focused. Let me be more conscious about what I'm doing and spending my time on. And so now they become a bit more narrow. Maybe they're more family orientated. So they're like, okay, I want to have a family. I want to be this type of dad, this type of mom. And so they choose a role at this point because they find that it's more difficult to play Superman or Superwoman and to juggle everything. So they say, I would rather do one thing really well than to do everything else with a half heart or not with my full attention. And it's not to say that you can't be working father or working mother, because that's not true. We can see it happening in the world today. But the feeling that we get, because some people that I speak with, they're like, I feel so bad because I'm always away. And this is both men and women. They're like, I feel so bad that I'm always away on all these business trips and I don't get to spend much time with my kids. And we talked about the idea of freedom being a value that they want, but yet they sacrifice their freedom to give their family the freedom to go on these vacations to do everything. So it's almost like a self-sacrifice they make to ensure that their family is in a better place. And in a sense, most parents, they envision the best for their children. They want to give their kids the best life. And so sometimes they will take the back burner of focus and give it to their kids. So they'll make sure that their family is the best possible or in the best possible situation. Now, we can go down, or you can answer it anyway. It doesn't have to be singular, male or woman. It could just be business owner. What would you recommend for these individuals that are struggling between taking Friday off, as you said earlier, to spend time with their family and making as much money to create that empire and that legacy that they also envision for themselves?
I love this. And I actually don't subscribe to sacrifice. Discipline, yes. Sacrifice, no. And I sort of sit in the vein of you can have everything you desire, you just have to want it bad enough, because there is always a way to make things work. And sometimes you just have to move some of the pieces to actualize that. Talking to, like taking Friday off to spend with the family versus, hustling to build an empire. I read somewhere there's no point creating an empire if you're going to rule it alone. And I think we sometimes forget that, especially in relationship, that we're not the only one on the ride. We want to bring our family along for that because, I've had failed marriages. I am a single mother and I still travel the world. I sit more in the vein of I'm educating my son to not self-sacrifice in order to receive love. And I come at parenting from, everything I'm trying to unlearn or undo in my upbringing. I'm trying to allow him to be securely attached, but know that he deeply has priority in my life without sacrificing my needs as well. And it's a really fine line to walk. And the only way I've been able to do that is by letting go of expectation of society and truly just staying in my compass and my truth and my values and walking this line of how can I both be mother and in the archetypes in the world that I live in and maiden, this version of me that is deeply nurturing and loving and, gives everything for her son. And I was also me before him. And how can I make sure I'm giving to myself first and fulfilling my needs? Because I've witnessed in so many, especially career-driven women, that try balance parenthood and building careers where they sacrifice a lot of their career for their child, for example, where we subconsciously suppress this anger and rage and jealousy because we pour into our children too much and we don't come at it from a place of wholeness. We come at it from a place of lack. And it spills out into our relationships and it spills out into motherhood and it spills out into subconsciously sabotaging our relationships with our children, or they turn 18 and we never hear from them again because we've basically, from our own lack, we've poured into our children and made our whole lives about them, and they feel this surmounting pressure to sustain our happiness. And so the way in which I parent is by consciously choosing secure attachment, which means not pouring out of myself too much and not pulling from my child too much, and finding this middle ground of really coming into balance and truth with filling up my cup first in a way that makes him feel considered and chosen, because I don't want to, we're never going to do things perfectly, but my wound is abandonment, and I don't want to create that same wound within the fabric of his being. And it's a balance between consciously choosing myself and choosing motherhood at the same time. So that's sort of my encompassing thoughts around motherhood.
There is
And to
harmony.
touch back, yeah, there is a harmony. I talk about this perfect tension point in life. We're never going to get it right, but I aim for the perfect tension point. I aim to find the harmony in the push and the pull and the give and the take. And then grace when I don't get it right, because I don't always get it right. But I can feel where he's secure, and then I can feel the times or the places where he needs more of my love, and it's up to me to give that to him to find the harmony and the balance again. And then when it comes to, type A personality, high achieving business people, which was me and still is to some degree, I think we've been programmed to believe that we have to sacrifice. And I want to, touch on, there's a difference between sacrifice and discipline. It's being a woman and being in this world of like receptivity and femininity and boss babe era. I don't believe in sacrifice, but I do believe in discipline. And that might mean, waking up an hour earlier to ensure that I can both work out and get all of my work done and have time with my family. It might mean working one Saturday a month so I can have a Friday off, or, finding this tension point, finding this harmony where I talk about alignment. So for me and for the women that I coach, I work in tantric principles because it does bleed through into success and everyday life. And I look at pleasure, play, and prosperity. And they're our centers within us. And pleasure is not just about sexuality, but like how much joy can you have in your life? How much pleasure can you allow yourself to have? Play for me is love and connection. And it's ensuring that we're not building empires and then reaching this pinnacle of success and getting there and looking around and being like, well, I went through a divorce and I lost all of my friends because I didn't nurture myself or the relationships in my life. So now what's the point? And prosperity is feeding into our growth and this logical part of us, this part that seeks evolution. And so when I look at sacrifice or success or, having everything we desire, I tend to come back to, am I making decisions from full alignment? Or am I just chasing money through my logic and through the fact that I know that if I work 12-hour days, I'm going to achieve X, Y, and Z? But I'm actually neglecting the fact that I don't have any fulfilling relationships. So what's the point? And there is no pleasure, there is no play there. Like, to relate it back to sexuality, maybe I don't have a sex life or I don't have any intimate relationships, and life becomes void of pleasure, void of the stuff that makes it good, the fullness and the fulfillment that comes from actually allowing and giving yourself permission to live from this place of alignment rather than just living from the mind and chasing the next achievement or accolade to fill a void that you're likely trying to fill because your other centers aren't in alignment and you're not actually living out a life of fulfillment. You're just racing to a finish line that actually isn't everything it's cracked up to be when you get there.
And I like the idea of sacrifice versus discipline, because if there is a will, there is a way. And it might not be easy. It definitely might not be easy. Some days you might come home and be like, oh my God, like this is tough. But you can push through. And the people who push through, they come out on the other end stronger and ready for the next day. And it becomes easier as you progress, as you keep on working, as you continue growing. It's like going to the gym. The first day you might be weak, but if you go for a day straight, for a whole entire year, you're going to be a lot stronger than day one. And our mind, the same thing happens, right? We mentally fortify ourselves, and the things and the skills that we do and learn, we are going to get stronger. And this is life, right? We evolve, we enhance ourselves. And the conversation that we have is just the beginning, because people can begin to enhance their life, their business, career, and a deeper understanding of what they truly desire. Be it that you want to go down a career path or you want to learn how to live in harmony with yourself. This is all going to create an equilibrium in your life that you're going to say, I'm happy that I chose this. So as we begin to wrap up, I would love for you to share with the audience how they can find you.
Social media is the best and easiest way. So it's at Lezly Kaye, Lezlykaye. That has links to the ways you can work with me or the podcasts that I'm on. So if you jump across on Facebook or Instagram, I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me there and then click the link in bio and have access to everything that I offer.
Perfect. And I'll definitely make it easy. The links will be in the description box below so people can easily find you, follow you, and become a part of your organization, because it's going to be a wonderful mindset to learn, because we get to see just how someone got to live their life, see how it worked out for them, and then to look at their life and say, okay, it is possible. And that right there is what we can do too. We can be pioneers for other people. We can say that this person has done it, I can do it too. And when one person has done it, then it makes it believable by everyone. Think of John Bannister and the 4-minute mile. Everyone thought it was impossible until one person did it. So if you need some guidance, if you need some help, look no further. Lezly's going to be a great example for many individuals trying to get into this work-life balance, if you want to call it that, or work-life harmony, and learning more about how they can enhance their business acumen. I want to thank you so much, Lezly, for coming on, spending some time, and talking about your work. All right, everyone, I'd like to thank you so much for watching that interview of my guest, Lezly Kaye. What went on in the episode is not only did we talk about the ideas of starting a business, being a worker, starting and maintaining that high level mindset you have to have, but having some patience with yourself, because you can't build a huge empire just like in one day. Like, okay, I'm going to start a business and boom, it's successful. Yes, you can be that fortunate. Sometimes you're going to have some hurdles, some trials and tribulations. You're going to have some hiccups along the way. And whether they be business, relationships, family, whatever, you might have some hiccups along the way. But as you go, you become more refined and you learn, right? We learn from our past, and they don't even have to be past mistakes. Like, we don't even have to call them that, but we learn from our past. And wisdom is we learn from others. So I'm going to learn from maybe my father. I'm going to learn maybe from my older brother, people who have already walked the path that maybe I'm aiming at walking. I might have business mentors. I'm going to look at their life and I'm going to say, is this the life that I want? And if it is the life that you want, then sure, go for it. And I remember this is a older interview. I think it might have been either an individual episode or like an interview, or it was a group episode with my good friend Ted Phaeton. If you haven't watched that episode, check him out, Ted Phaeton. He was talking about how he was hanging around all these high-level entrepreneurs and how they would go travel and they would do all this. And Ted and his girlfriend and wife now, she was worried, like, hey, are you going to be going out and, spending all this time doing all these meetings and not have time for me and time for the family? He was like, no. Like, I'm just learning from these individuals. I understand that family's first. He knew that family was first. And his wife didn't want him to step away and to just be one of those high level achievers that will go out and travel the world and spend 1 week with their family a year. She didn't want that aspect. She wanted the husband who was going to be home, there to support her, there to be there with the kids growing up. She wanted that. And it wasn't so much of he didn't want that. They wanted the same thing. That's why they're married. In a sense, sometimes our values are just not in a line. And so you might want to be this high level achieving person and realize that, well, this person is going to be an obstacle for me, or this person's stopping me from truly wanting to excel in life. I don't believe it's that, because at some point you don't sacrifice. You don't sacrifice. Like, I don't believe I sacrifice when I hang out with my son. It's like a pleasure. Like, when I don't have to do stuff, I'm like, great, hang out with my kid. This is enjoyable for me. I get more workers as I want more freedom. That's just what happens in my life, at least. Right now, it's just like, if I feel like I'm too busy, I don't have time to focus, I don't have time to get things done efficiently, effectively, and properly, that means I need to delegate some of my workload. So I will get another VA, or I'll get a new podcast manager or something along those lines. I have so many editors for the podcast. It's ridiculous. And it's just because I'm churning out, again, it's only 3 episodes, but it's seemingly very high quality, and not in the sense of video, but I do my best to get the best audio I can. I mean, I could go for the big studio setup, but I chose to just have a simple setup because I wanted to not give the image for at least season 1 that anyone can do this. This is possible. You could become a coach. You can become a mentor, especially if you have the wisdom for it. And this is what I'm trying to say, right? You can look at someone's life and you could say, I enjoy that life. And then you can look at someone's life and say, you know, I don't want that life. You can look at a mean person that's just being rude to a dog or a cat or whatever, and you're like, I don't want to be that person. Maybe it doesn't even have to be an animal. Maybe it could be a human. How someone can degrade somebody. And you say, I don't want to be that person. So we learn, whether instinctually or subconsciously, that we don't want to be certain people because of how they act, how they choose to live life. We choose something different for us. In order for that to happen, we have to know what we want. We have to know the direction that we would like to walk in. And this is where many business mentors shine because they can give some direction to the individual. And it's not so much of what I did, but figuring out what would you like to do? Because I can talk about what I believe all day, but if you want to know something about that, you go to Mindset OD. I'll tell you that all day long. This is not about me. This is about what would you like, right? Think of it as, I already used this example once before. I don't know how long it was since I last used it, but imagine going to a restaurant and you sit down and you're in the mood for a hamburger. When you order a hamburger, they say, okay, not a problem, be right out. And you know what they bring you? They bring you a salad. And the salad doesn't even have any meat on it. It's just salad, tomatoes, that's it. And you're like, but I ordered a hamburger. And they're like, well, you got your lettuce, you have your tomato, you're just missing the beef patty and some bread, but it's close to hamburger as you're going to get. Okay. And now you're going to say, well, I feel like I've been robbed, right? And they still give you the bill. Sometimes in life, you can feel that way, especially like if you are going in for something like as simple as a hamburger, you get a salad and you might want success, but you get failure. It doesn't feel good. It's not what you ordered, but yet we have the capabilities to get that success. It might not be because someone gave it to us. It might have to be that we went out and we got it for ourselves. So that wisdom, as I was saying, is something that you can look at someone's life and say, this is the life that I truly want. You can pick and choose what you want, right? Think of it as, do it yourself, make your own type of thing. So if you go to an ice cream parlor, you can get as many toppings as you want, but then you're not going to typically put the toppings you don't like. So if you don't like Oreos, you're not going to get Oreos. But maybe you want sprinkles, you want gummy bears, you want cherries, maybe it's chocolate syrup, caramel, right? So that's it, right? It's a lot of toppings. That right there is going to be what you want. Maybe a person behind you, they only get sprinkles and chocolate. Did they do it wrong? And you did it right? As you can see, there's different choices that we can make. Just because you made a different choice, it doesn't mean that the person behind you or person next to you made the wrong choice. We all get to make our own choices. However, our choices do have consequences long term. Now, we might think that we're keeping our head above water. And in a sense, we might. But sometimes when you least expect it, you're going to drop something. And it's not on purpose most of the time. It's just that we dropped the ball. I had guests come on. They were so busy. They were just saying they're doing all this and they're doing all that, and they forgot their kid or something along those lines, or they weren't able to make one of their events or something like that. It's interesting for children growing up because it might seem insignificant to not show up to a parent-teacher conference or to not show up for their third grade recorder recital. It's not that big of a deal, but to them, it could be. So sometimes we have to choose one or the other, where we can choose a business meeting or we can choose our family. And I had to make that choice, and my kid is only 1 year old. Heck, before my kid was even born, I had to make that choice because my son was born 1 month early, right? And I was planning all this perfectly. I was like, this is going to be perfect. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to plan all this perfect. The baby's not supposed to be out until July. I'm going to give myself the first 2 weeks in June to do every last little bit of things I have to do. And I had some big meetings planned up and lined up and everything. And sure enough, well, the baby decided to come the first week in June. And I was like, well, that's going to throw a wrench in everything. And I had a choice. I can say, well, am I going to be there for my wife and my son? Or am I going to do all my business meeting, make all the money, and call it a day? Well, naturally, my value is family. So I chose family. In a sense, I had to make a choice. I don't necessarily call that choice a sacrifice, because I would have probably regretted if I did the work instead of going and spending time with my family and being there for them. Sacrifice might be the wrong word. We have to make a decision. So one choice is going to lead to another choice. And if you know anything about what we do here, Reven Concepts, we use a flowchart system. So every choice that we make, it leads to alternate choices, right? And this is true for almost all aspects of life, because you might think, well, I'm going to look at my first choice, right? And my first choice is, do I go to the movies? Do I go to the restaurant? Or do I go to buy some clothes? Well, you might say, well, I'm going to do it all because I don't want to not experience life to the fullest. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to go to the restaurant, and I'm going to buy me a new outfit. Okay, great. How long can you keep that up? Not indefinitely. I can guarantee it. Eventually, you're going to say, I just want to go to the movies today. You know what? I haven't bought a new outfit in a while. Let me buy a new outfit. Not saying you can't do multiple of those things, but all the time? You're not going to do it all the time. Because as time goes, your preference is also going to change. You do have to figure that out. However, values are typically ones that are not going to change once you solidify them. As Lezly was saying in the beginning, she was thinking about her values. And she started to think, like, okay, they're starting to change. She's starting to change. Because as time progresses, our values do change and mature. Because the mindset that we have when we're a teenager is not the same mindset we have as when we're an adult. And the adult stages are going to be different. How you think when you're in your late 20s, early 30s is very different than how you think in your 50s. We have a different mindset. And it's okay to have a different mindset. It's okay to have different values at different stages of your life. Your character typically doesn't change. So who you want to be, who do you want to be remembered as? This can be a guiding light for many individuals. The best way is to get a coach, to get a mentor, to have someone help you along the way so they can give you a bit of help so you can see all the stuff you can't see, right? Your blind spots. And when we can shine some light on those blind spots for you, then you can truly start to see, okay, wow, there's a lot more to do than what I thought. And then from there, you're going to mitigate a lot of mistakes. You're going to sacrifice a lot of the trial and error you don't need. You can have meaningful mistakes rather than just mistakes that are trivial. Because in life, we get to choose to follow the crowds. We can choose to follow the masses. They can be the same thing, but in our mind, they can be totally different. The world might tell you to do one thing. Society might tell you to do one thing. Your family might tell you to do one thing. Your friends might tell you to do one thing. And as you can see, they all might be telling you to choose a different path. Which one do you choose? How about you learn about the path that you would like to follow, the path that you would like to have lived, the path that when you look back in hindsight, you can say, no matter what I have done, I am glad that I walked this path. At that point, then you can start to see exactly what you should be doing right now, what you should be doing today. There's no need for waiting. There's no need for procrastination. You have everything you need right now. Whether you reach out to Lezly or myself here at Reven Concepts, we'll be more than happy to help you on your path to success and getting into the mindset of a true entrepreneur in our world today. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.